Alright, welcome back for another replay cast. Playing as the Dwarves again. This will be our last match as the Dwarves. So I'm coming in with a Runelord as my Lord. I've got Dwarf Warriors on the front, along with some Miners with blasting charges. So 4 squads of Dwarf Warriors, 2 squads of Miners with blasting charges, 2 squads of Quarrelers behind them, 2 squads of Iron Drakes behind them, and then Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and a Flame Cannon. For my opponent, they are playing as the Tomb Kings, so they've got a squad of Carrion up in the air, Settra the Imperisable on the Kemrian War Sphinx. I believe that's, yeah, on the Kemrian War Sphinx. They've got a separate Kemrian War Sphinx, just a standard monster. Necropolis Knights, a Necrotect, I believe on a Chariot, yep. And then a Tomb Prince on foot. So let's get back to my part of the map. Speed up the approach. I wasn't sure if he was going to have catapults or anything like that in the back, so I was trying to make sure I was at least staggering my troops a little bit. And once we started getting to this point and I was seeing what he was coming with and that he didn't have anything else in the backfield, it was different army than I expected. I was thinking he was going to come with a lot of skeletons, which is why I went pretty wide, why I brought blasting charges and quarrelers and whatnot. I did bring a lot of fire damage dealing troops, so the Iron Drakes, the Flame Cannons, Miners with blasting charges, Rune of Wrath and Rune on my Runelord, and things like that. So my opponent will have infantry. I mean, you're basically always going to see that, but they're starting off with a pretty large force. Carrion coming in the back to jump on top of the Iron Drakes, Settra and a War Sphinx plowing through my Flame Cannons. A little bit of missed micro on my part there. I probably should have just left the Flame Cannons in the back once I saw that he was approaching quickly and kind of blitzing me with all these fast-paced large troops. The Necropolis Knights charging around, just diving into my infantry. They've got decent armor piercing value, poison on their weapons and whatnot, so struggling to deal with that a little bit. Quarrelers are not going to do great against many of these troops because of their low armor piercing values, and most of the troops that he's brought starting off have good armor, except the Carrion. But the Quarrelers got caught up in this mix in the front. Pretty jumbled up, a lot of infantry, just trying to figure out what to target and where to go. I did bring gyrocopters with brimstone guns, so they're anti-large, they're armor piercing, and they have flaming ammunition. So these guys are going to be one of my keys for taking out these large targets, whether it's the Lord, the Kemrian War Sphinx, the Necrotect on the, on the Chariot, the Necropolis Knights, and whatever else is the case. The Carrion, unfortunately for me, did pretty good work on the Iron Drakes. I'm actually surprised. I guess their weapon strength is actually pretty high, so they, even despite the Iron Drakes armor values, let's take a quick look at their... So they've got 12 armor piercing, so it's not horrible, but they put out damage pretty quick on the Iron Drakes, faster than I would have expected. So Miners blasting charges getting on top of Settra. You can see they got a lot of their ammunition off, so he's down to about half health. My Runelord, a little under 75%. Brimstone guns still doing their thing. The Necropolis Knights still cycle charging. Looks like they are moving off towards point 1. Carrion jumping on top of the brimstone guns. So Carrion are infantry size. I know a lot of times you see flying units and might think that they're large, or you see the wingspan of these guys and think that they're large, but these do count as infantry size or small entities. So at this point, I'm kind of just reforming my lines, trying to figure out what I should do with my infantry blob. I'm not sure if I should kind of keep them compact so that they can support each other, or if that's rewarding the large troops so that they can keep cycle charging through me, which is a lot of what they're doing with the War Sphinx and those Necropolis Knights, who are now on the run. We got a group of Slayers chasing after them. They are on their way up the ramp away from point 1 and just trying to disengage, I guess because the Slayers are here. So gyrocopters with brimstone guns stuck over here with some Carrion on top of them. Other squad is coming over to help them out, a little bit of aerial combat. Quarrelers shooting down the Carrion that were kind of in between this big infantry blob. And my Runelord, where has he gotten off to? Still pretty good health. Flame Cannons and Iron Drakes getting some shots off on Settra. The Flame Cannons don't really have any great targets as far as infantry. It does say that they're an anti-infantry shooter. They don't have it on their missile or their ammunition, I don't believe. Yeah, so I'm assuming it's just because of the way the radius is on their explosion. I'm not sure if it gives you the range. Let's see, reload time. No, so it doesn't tell you the AoE on the explosion. But I guess if you have a explosive shot artillery, it usually is going to be good against infantry because of how compact they are. So let's see, they've got Kepler Guard coming in, magic attacks and weapons, what do you call it, anti-infantry on their weapons charging in. So that's going to be a bad trade for the miners with blasting charges. I might have got some blasting charges off on these guys given the damage they've taken, but they're going to do pretty well against these miners. Big infantry blob over here trying to get some capture weight on point 2. Slayer's still chasing those Necropolis Knights, which are now engaged in the front melee. So now they're kind of retargeting, going after Settra, going after the Tomb Scorpion, which he's brought on. Armor piercing, anti-infantry. Tomb Scorpion is going to be doing decent against Dwarf infantry. Flame Cannon still shooting away, shooting at the War Sphinx, and another squad of these guys shooting as well. Carrion coming around the flank again. So here I brought on a squad of miners to run over and secure point 1 because I've been so distracted with all the different troops running around. I'm trying to keep an eye on, which large targets have been damaged, which one should I be prioritizing. Is there any way I can get the Lord off the field? How do I deal with this situation? So the Carrion jumping on top, but right as they were diving in, I brought another squad of miners on, and I also brought a squad of Quarrelers. I figured Quarrelers would do decent against them because they've got low armor. These guys have pretty good range, and Skeleton Horsemen charging around as well. Brimstone guns are going to be shooting them down. These guys will go down pretty fast with the Brimstone guns. They are anti-large again, and they do have the flaming ammunition, so both things that the Skeleton Horsemen are not going to enjoy eating up. Runelord taking a pretty good amount of damage from the Nehekar Warriors over here, and the cycle charging for the War Sphinxes. I'm not sure if the Tomb Scorpions got on top of him much, but he's been kind of just locked in combat and run around, bouncing from here to there. So I'm bringing him back. He's a little bit low on health. Their Lord is doing pretty well, fighting off some Slayers with the help of some Carrion. And the other Kemerian War Sphinx. Seems like these guys are kind of tag teaming, following each other around. Necropolis Knights charging in. Pretty good charge bonus on them. Slayers are not going to like that given their low armor count. Ekron Miners on the pursuit. I believe they might be chasing after the Necropolis Knights. I wanted their blasting charges to get put to use. So Brimstone guns shooting at the Tomb Scorpion now, getting some good fire damage on him. Runelord chasing as well. Probably not the best target for this guy because he's infantry size and this thing is armor piercing and anti-infantry. But you'll see now I'm kind of redirecting him, realizing the lack of numbers that I have on this side of the field. Gonna have some unsummoning going on. You see they've got a Screaming Skull catapult over here. So another anti-infantry artillery piece, this time for the Tomb Kings with the armor piercing. They've got the leadership debuff. Flame cannons are intact. One of them is. One got chased off by the Carrion dive. Point 1 is now under my control. You can see I'm falling behind on the victory points. My opponent has had point 2 for good amount of the match, and they grabbed point 3 early on. Unlike me, I got stuck in my backfield and was not paying attention to moving. I could have just moved one Dwarf Warrior or something like that back here amidst all of the combat in the initial engagement. But either way, Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. You can see just from the units remaining and the possible units to bring on the field that I came with a much wider roster than my opponent, which I don't know what's typical for Tomb Kings. I don't know what people are typically going to be bringing with them. I tended to bring a pretty good amount of infantry when I played as the Tomb Kings, especially in the beginning. But you can see the Screaming Skull catapults doing pretty good against these Dwarf Warriors. My Runelord, unfortunately, is getting caught out by the Tomb Scorpion and their Lord Settra, or excuse me, not the Lord, but the Kemerian War Sphinx. Now Settra is joining in on the combat, and this guy is going to have a really tough time getting out of here because he has very low speed. So he's got 32 speed, and these guys have 68 speed because of their mounts. Tomb Prince is over here as well. He's anti-large, but he's got armor piercing and decent damage output. So miners coming over here trying to help, but they're not going to be able to do the deal. The mass of these large monsters is just too much to deal with. even if I'm able to get some reinforcements over here to slow them down, they're just going to trample through them. So Nehekar warriors and more Nehekar warriors coming to support. They're going to deal well against the miners. So these guys are kind of just going to perish with the Runelord. Brimstone guns still just getting some shots off. Their ammunition is out now. So ideally, I want to bring them back and disengage with them and unsummon them because they're not going to contribute much in this melee. They're basically not going to contribute at all. You can see their melee defense is only 6. Their melee attack is 31, but nothing crazy with the attack damage. No armor piercing value really. If they do have any, it's very limited. Point 1 still under my control. No pressure coming from the downhill over here from my opponent. But he's probably happy to sit on points 2 and 3 given the situation. I'm slightly behind on the value points, but I got some more supplies, so I've got room to bring more troops on the field. Quarreler shooting in at the Lord, just trying to get some chip damage on Settra. Potentially better to shoot at the Nehekar warriors. 45 armor on those guys, 95 on Settra. So because these guys don't have too much armor piercing, so only a quarter of their damage is armor piercing. And what I'm looking at is the 6 versus the 18. They're going to do better shooting at a low armor target. And it's probably easier for them to get more guaranteed hits on Nehekar warriors, I would assume, because of the amount of infantry. Maybe not when they're locked up in an infantry fight like this, where they're front line, face to face with my troops, but either way, Quarreler shooting in support, the Dwarf warriors and the miners and whatnot. Slayers are in the mix as well. Slayers probably best to be pulled out of here and conserved so that they can fight against the War Sphinx and things like that. Speaking of, got another squad of Slayers charging over here on the flank, looking to get on top of one of the War Sphinxes, the Tomb Scorpion or whatever it may be. More infantry coming, so Nehekar warriors coming from the Tomb Kings, and that is an engagement that Slayers do not want to be in. No armor on these guys, good anti-infantry combat from the Nehekar warriors. So more brimstone guns coming on, shooting at the Tomb Scorpion. Let's see, my Lord is off the field, so some of you might have seen him die, probably back around this area. The War Sphinx is chasing him down, and I'm not sure if the Tomb Scorpion was in there as well, but he just wasn't going to get away. I didn't have the mass to slow them down. You can see the Carrion being really put to use by my opponent, fighting against the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. They had jumped on top of someone else back here. It might have been Iron Drakes. I can't quite remember what they jumped on top of. Maybe it was one of these squads of Quarrelers, but Warriors of Dragonfire Pass trying to get them off. So anti-infantry, flaming attacks, that's specifically why I brought these guys. I figured they'd be a good utility piece in this combat against the Tomb Kings. More Nehekar warriors chasing around here. You see the Slayers that I had that were originally going for a flanking run, trying to get on top of the large targets, are now running backwards and just trying to avoid this. This is one thing that I've been working on, is if you don't have a good engagement, just because, or a good unit matchup I should say, just because they're disrupting your path doesn't mean you should run straight into them. Sometimes it's better to back up, reform, and avoid unfavorable trades, and just be patient. So something that I've been focusing on. I am still behind in the value trading and on the victory points, but you know, just learning as these dwarfs, still having some trouble figuring out how to deal with the mobility, and I probably didn't do the best job of dealing with all the large entities and having my infantry kind of all around each other in this focus point. I think in retrospect what I should have done is split off, got guys on point 1, got guys around this flank, even though it would have taken them a while, just avoiding the trample damage from these troops, and just give them less targets and make them really put their movement speed to use and either commit to trampling down one squad of guys or commit to running around and chasing down other troops, while I brought on more anti-large options, whether it's Slayers, Gyrocopters with brimstone guns, miners with blasting charges to at least get some fire damage, explosives on them, and things of that nature. So if you can't tell, although I got my Runelord back on the field and my brimstone guns are getting some shots off on Settra, this match is basically over. I don't have the momentum to push back to point 2 and also get point 3, and we're in triple cap territory right here. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this. You'll see I end up taking down Settra with the brimstone guns. Chosen the God doing some shooting, taking out infantry and whatnot, but that was over. I conceded, didn't want to waste my time or my opponents given the situation. And well played to my opponent. I think I've seen that player a good couple times. I've probably faced him like 3 or 4 times on the ladder, so I knew he was around my skill level, somewhere thereabouts. So, wow, my Runelord actually did way more damage than I would have thought. I did resummon him, but he didn't even get much combat in on the second way around, so... Okay, these values are glitched. That's why. I was like, that damage... Actually, you know what? I'm having a huge brain fart. I just finished a day of work. I'm looking at damage dealt as opposed to damage in gold value. Okay, so never mind. That makes more sense. So he didn't do shit. Flame cannons didn't do great. Warriors of Dragonfire Pass didn't do great, given their cost. Iron Drakes I really did not use well. Basically, all of my starting troops I did pretty bad with. Didn't get the Peak Gate Guard on the field. I don't think they would have been able to do too much given the targets that I had available. Slayers did pretty well. Brimstone guns were really, man, they came in clutch. I almost wonder if it's worth bringing maybe even 3 of those guys in the back pocket. Ekron Miners did really good with the blasting charges. I'm pretty sure that these guys absolutely shredded the Kepler Guard or some kind of elite infantry, and that's where they got a lot of their value, so they did well. I think probably I go with more miners with blasting charges, more anti-large options, maybe some giant slayers as well, and less infantry. Kind of hard to tell. You know, there's so many different things you can do with builds, and I didn't do horrible on the value trading, but I definitely miscontrolled my troops a lot in the beginning, so that was probably a huge part of the loss. So for my opponent, Settra didn't do too much damage. The Kemrian War Sphinx did a little bit. Necrotech a little bit. Necropolis Knights did pretty well. Good cycle charging for my opponent with them. Carrion definitely were shining stars, 1200 on them. I forget how much they cost, but Chosen the Gods did alright. Screaming Skull Catapult did well. Nakar Warriors didn't do as well as I would have thought, I guess because of their lack of armor piercing, but the Carrion and the Catapults really did very well for this guy. Or I should say he did well with them, as well as with the Necropolis Knights. So, well played to him. Thanks for watching. That'll be my last match as the Dwarfs, and I'll take a look and see what other race I want to play next. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.